We are now a week after the G60 tournament, and I'm playing this guy who's a 1655, which as a about 1100 rated player over the board, I'm like, great, probably not going to win this one, but let's try our best anyways. So hello, Dom. So I start off as white here, and I go e4. He goes knight to c6. I go knight to f3, and he goes with f5, which I've never seen this before. I've never come against this. I didn't know what to do, so I just push the pawn over here to e5. He pushes the pawn, and he really wants me to just take one of his pawns. And I say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just put my bishop here and pin the knight, and he still won't take my pawn. So I'm pushing in, and I'm just going to fortify this as much as possible. That's what I'm going. This opening is the Nemowich defense declined, and then going f5 is the Colorado gambit. So I push up here on d4, just trying to fight for the center as much as possible. He brings the bishop to unpin that knight, and I take the knight so he doesn't take the d4 pawn. We trade bishops. I castle. He develops his knight or a bishop. I develop my bishop. Just really just centering, hammering down this position as much as I can. And I then develop my knight, and then he comes and attacks my bishop. I don't think I probably should have brought it back to c4, or bishop to c1. Actually, that was the third best move. So I move my bishop back here. They close down the position. I try to get the queen involved. He starts attacking my knight. My men are being pushed back, and I throw in this pawn move here. He's pushing the pawns towards my king, and I'm like, great. If you're going to push towards my king, I'm going to go queenside attack. He goes b6. And then I'm trying to maneuver my knight in some way to stop this kingside attack as much as possible. He gets his queen in some sort of position. I'm trying to attack with a knight. The bishop has now pinned the queen and the knight. Things aren't looking well for me. He then takes this pawn, putting my king in check. And there's not really anything to do to stop the rook take here. So I just bring the bishop over here to e3. He takes the rook, and I throw a check myself. But there's really nothing I can do. I'm floundering at this point. I attack the knight, the queen in both ways. Queen comes back, and then I protect here, but it's not looking good. My queen's starting to get trapped. I bring my queen back to e2. At this point, I have 30 seconds left on the clock. I stop taking notation. He's up 10 points on the evaluation bar. Things didn't go well for me that round. So I lost that round pretty decisively. I wasn't happy about that. So we go into the second round of this tournament, and I'm playing against this guy who's like about 1500. He's got to be in his 60, I would say 70s or 80s. He's a very old man. I'm white again, so I go into the King's Indian attack. This is when I first started using the King's Indian attack, so I kind of knew the basic tenets, but didn't know exactly what I should do at each moment. So following the system, it's a very passive game up to this point, and he pushes up to b5, looking to come to a5 and start a queenside attack. So I come over here to c3 to prevent this knight from coming to either of these squares. He pushes up to a5, and I bring my knight over here to h4, looking to get it onto the f5 square. He prevents that with g6. I push up with f4. He brings that knight up, and I was thinking, should I just push here? Take. I probably should have pushed, but for some reason I didn't. I just moved the queen here instead because I saw this bishop take here, but I did not anticipate the knight takes. So I'm losing my knight, and he's taking my pawns, really ripping apart my king side. My king is very fragile now, and then I skewer my rook and my queen. So I lose the rook. He tries to protect it as much as his king, and I'm trying to get some sort of attack, but there's nothing here. There's nothing here at all. I'm trying my best to get this in, and I find this nice little tactic where I can take the queen back for minimal, and at this point my notation ends. But the funny part of this is we get to a king and pawn endgame where he has one pawn and I have, oh no, he had two pawns and I had a king and a pawn. And he makes his move, but he doesn't touch the clock. The clock slowly starts ticking down. And I'm like, is he gonna hit the clock? Because I'm gonna take this win if nobody wants to take it, if he's not gonna take it. And it gets down to literally 3 seconds before he realizes that he hadn't hit the clock and hits it. And so I almost got lucky and won off a technicality, but it was pretty wild. So the second round, I'm 0-2, and I'm playing against this third guy here, and he is a 1600. Now in this tournament, I swear to God, everyone in this tournament is 1500 and above. So it's my pairings have been atrocious this whole time, and I'm playing people much better than me. Things were not looking good. I'm usually by the third round, I'm playing someone closer to my skill level, but in this 1600, they were not giving it to me. He starts off with e4. I go into the Caro-Kann structure, and we go into a classical main line. and we trade off. Everything is pretty standard. We trade off the queens. I get my knight here in the middle, and he puts his knight here, which is pretty problematic because he's gonna have a pretty strong knight outpost here pretty soon. I bring this knight out. He puts me in check. I bring this up, and he protects his pawn. I'm looking to get this pawn storm kind of marching, but there's not a lot I can do here. And once he gets his rook in, it is no bueno for me because I'm not able to really stop everything. And so he's picking me apart. At this point, I run low one time again, and I don't have the notation. However, with this, I was able to get my knight back, and we got into a king and pawn endgame where he was up a pawn and he was able to convert it. I start off this tournament 0-3. Probably my worst tournament if I lose this next game. So we go into the next game, and I'm playing against this kid that's about, I would say, 10 years old. And I'm like, I just have to win this game. Like, he's like, I think he is a 772. So I have to win this game or else my rating's gonna take a fat hit. He goes E4. I go into the Caro-Kann. We go into the Botanovic Carl's defense. And I figure I'm gonna try this little trick where if I take here, and he takes here, I get the bishop. Well, I don't get the bishop because this pawn's here. Like, I'm being an idiot, I guess. So he takes there, he takes the bishop. I don't have the bishop pair, but hey, things are fine. He attacks there, and for some reason, I bring my rook here because I know that he can't take here. But once this bishop leaves, I now need to move my bishop to safety or else it's going to die. And of course, what do? I move my queen and let my bishop die. And I mean, I picked up a pawn from it, but now I'm down 5 points in the final round of this tournament against a 700 rated opponent, and things are not looking good for me. So he offers to trade queens, and I say heck no to that. That is an awful idea, and I'm trying my best to just improve my position. He goes here. I bring the rook. He brings his rook, and then I find like a neat little tactic here where I can get the free knight by pushing my pawn up here to c4. So he blunders right back. And we're back to equality. At this point, I'm comfortable trading the queens. And now I'm trying to get him to take, get this pawn out of the way, but we're here and I'm gonna just get my king involved and get it here as much as possible. I bring my king here looking for the rook move here to take the pawn back. He doesn't take it. And I take the king. And from here, now I'm up a lot because I have a great pawn structure and there's no way for him to really get through. And so I slowly just beat him down, take his pawns, and push to completion, and checkmate him pretty quick. And so I escaped disaster going 0-4 in this tournament, and I get my 1 point. So I finished 1-4 in this tournament. Probably one of my worst tournaments I've ever played, but the matchups that I got were not conducive to me even doing well. And so I look to do better in the next week. So if you like that video, please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I come out with my over-the-board chess tournament recaps, opening theory, and like endgame theory videos so that you can learn to be a better player. So yeah, you guys have a great day. Goodbye.